The Galactic Council accidentally awakened humanity's survival protocol Part 1, the quiet world, for 300 years. Humanity had been silent. The world above was dead, or so the galaxy believed. But deep beneath the burned ground and poisoned sky, humans lived on. They had not given up. They had simply learned to wait. Commander Daniel Hayes walked through the long metal hallway of Bunker 7. His boots made soft sounds on the floor. Around him, the lights hummed with steady power. This place had been his home since birth. He had never seen the sun. He had never felt rain on his face. But he knew both would come. Someday. The bunker was one of hundreds scattered across Earth. Each one held thousands of people. Each one was connected to the others through underground tunnels and communication lines. Together, they formed a hidden nation, a world beneath a world. Daniel reached the observation room and stepped inside. Large screens covered the walls, showing images from the surface. He saw ruined cities covered in dust. He saw empty highways where cars had rusted into nothing. He saw a sky that was gray and thick with old poison, but he also saw the drones. Small machines flew across the dead landscape, sending false signals into space. They made Earth look even more dead than it was. They were part of the plan. Another day, another scan, said a voice behind him. Daniel turned to see Lieutenant Maria Santos entering the room. She was young, maybe 30 years old, with dark hair tied back in a simple knot. She had been his second in command for 5 years now. The Council probe? Daniel asked. Yes, same as always. It circles the system, takes readings, and moves on. Maria walked to her console and began checking the data. They still think we are extinct. Daniel nodded slowly. This was the great secret of humanity. 300 years ago, when the last wars ended and Earth lay dying, the survivors had made a choice. They would not try to reach the stars. They would not call for help. Instead, they would hide. The Galactic Council had visited Earth 200 years ago. Their ships had come in silence, scanning the planet from orbit. They had seen the destruction, the empty cities, the poisoned air. They had recorded humanity as another failed species, a race that had destroyed itself with war and greed. Then they had left, but they had not looked deep enough. Show me the fleet status, Daniel said. Maria pressed several buttons. The main screen changed to show a map of the solar system. Tiny dots of light appeared everywhere. Some were near Mars. Others floated in the asteroid belt. Many more hid on the dark side of the moon. 12,417 ships, Maria reported, all ready for launch. Admiral Patricia Cole completed the final checks last week. Daniel studied the map. Each of those dots was a warship, built in secret over 3 centuries. The first ships had been small and weak. But humans learned fast. They captured Council probes, studied alien technology, and made it better. Now their ships were strong enough to fight anyone. And the population? Daniel asked. 8 billion across all bunkers. Education levels are high. Military training is complete for all adults under 60. Maria paused. We are ready, sir. We have been ready for 50 years. Daniel said nothing. He walked to the main screen and placed his hand against it. Beyond that screen, beyond the rock and metal that protected them, lay the universe. A universe that thought humanity was dead. My grandfather told me stories, Daniel said quietly, about the old days, before the collapse. He said people used to fight over small things, land, money, ideas. They could not see that they were all one people. Maria listened in silence. The collapse changed that. When we had nothing left, when death was coming for everyone, we finally understood. We stopped fighting each other. We became one. Daniel turned to face her. That is why we will win. Not because our ships are strong. Because we are together. Maria nodded. The Council has never seen anything like us. They are used to species that fight among themselves. They will not know what to do when they face a united enemy. If they ever come, Daniel said. But deep inside, he knew they would come. The galaxy was hungry. Species rose and fell, and when they fell, others came to pick the bones. Earth had resources, water, metals, rare elements. Sooner or later, someone would want them. The alarm came 3 days later. Daniel was sleeping when the sound woke him. He was on his feet in seconds, pulling on his uniform as he ran to the command center. The hallways were full of people moving fast, all heading to their posts. He burst into the command center to find Maria already there. Her face was pale. "Report," Daniel said. "Contact at the edge of the system. Multiple ships." Maria pulled up the sensor data. 59 vessels. 12 are military class. The rest are mining ships. Daniel felt his heart beat faster. Who are they? Silithian Dominion. They are one of the major powers in the Council. Their leader pushed for harvesting rights to our system last month. Maria looked at him. They think they are coming to strip a dead world. Daniel stared at the screen. 59 ships. A full harvesting fleet. They would tear apart the asteroid belt first, then move to the moon, then to Earth itself. They would dig up the graves of 8 billion people who were still alive beneath the surface. Contact Admiral Cole, Daniel said. His voice was calm now. The fear was gone, replaced by something harder. Tell her to begin fleet activation. Sir, once we reveal ourselves, there is no going back. The whole galaxy will know. I know. Daniel watched the alien ships moving closer on the screen. 300 years of hiding. 300 years of building. 300 years of waiting. He took a deep breath. The waiting is over. Maria sent the message. Across the solar system, lights began to turn on. Engines that had been cold for decades came to life. Soldiers who had trained their whole lives for this moment strapped into their seats in Bunker 7. Daniel Hayes gave the order that would change everything. Activate Protocol Genesis, he said. Wake up humanity. The screens around him lit up with thousands of signals. Ships were launching. Soldiers were moving. A sleeping giant was opening its eyes, and somewhere out there, 59 alien ships had no idea what was coming for them. The Galactic Council accidentally awakened humanity's survival protocol, Part 2. The decree far across the galaxy. In a place where stars had been moved to form perfect patterns. The Galactic Council met in their great chamber. The room was made of crystal that seemed to float in space. Around its edges, platforms hovered in the air, each one holding the representative of a different species. There were over 400 species in the Council. Some were tall and thin, with skin like glass. Others were short and covered in fur. Some had wings. Some had tentacles. Some had bodies so strange that humans would not have known which end was the head. High Arbiter Kethvarin stood at the center of the chamber. He was a Silithian, a creature with 4 arms and skin the color of dark stone. His species was powerful. They controlled 70 star systems and had the 3rd largest fleet in the galaxy. The matter is simple, Kethvarin said. His voice was a series of clicks and hisses, but the translators in the room turned it into words everyone could understand. The Sol system has been marked as a resource zone for 200 years. The species there is dead. Their planet is full of useful materials. The Silithian Dominion asks for harvesting rights. Ambassador Yira of the Mentari Collective rose from her platform. She was an insect-like being, with large eyes and wings that caught the light. The collective also has interest in Sol. Our scientists want to study the human ruins. They were a curious species. Kethvarin made a sound that was his version of laughter. Study? What is there to study? They killed themselves with nuclear fire. They poisoned their own air. They were fools who could not control their own anger. He waved one of his arms. Let us take what they left behind. It is only waste now. In a far corner of the chamber, a small and very old creature listened to the debate. His name was Oryx, and he was a keeper. His species had watched the galaxy for millions of years. They did not build empires or fight wars. They only watched and remembered. Oryx had seen many species rise and fall. He had watched the first Silithians leave their homeworld. He had been there when the Mentari fought their civil war. He remembered things that others had forgotten long ago. Thought something about the Sol system had always bothered him. The reports said the humans were dead. The scans showed no life. But Oryx had learned to trust his feelings, and his feelings told him something was wrong. Perhaps, Oryx said, his voice thin and quiet, we should send another survey team. The last scan was 200 years ago. Things may have changed. Kefvorn turned his large head toward the old keeper. Nothing changes on a dead world. The humans destroyed themselves. This is fact. There is nothing more to discuss. The keeper raises a good point, said another voice. It belonged to Ambassador Tauren of the Varath Empire, a tall being with scales like metal. 200 years is a long time. We should be certain. Certain of what? Kefvorn spread all four arms wide. That rocks are still rocks? That poison air is still poison? The council wastes enough time already. I call for a vote. The vote was quick. Most species did not care about a dead world on the edge of known space. The Silithians wanted the resources. Let them have it. The motion passed with barely any opposition. Kefvorn showed his teeth in what passed for a smile. The Dominion thanks the council. We will begin harvesting operations immediately. As the chamber emptied, Oryx remained in his seat. He watched Kefvorn leave with his followers, all of them pleased with their victory. None of them noticed the old keeper sitting alone in the shadows. You are making a mistake, Oryx whispered to himself. I do not know what kind, but I feel it in my bones. 3 weeks later, the Silithian harvesting fleet gathered at the edge of their territory. It was an impressive sight. 47 mining ships, each one larger than a small city. 12 warships to protect them. Thousands of crew members ready to work. Fleet Commander Sorth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Abundant Fortune. He was proud of his fleet and proud of his mission. This would bring great wealth to the Dominion and great honor to his family name. Set course for Sol, he ordered. Standard harvesting formation. The fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel. Space bent around them. Stars became lines of light. In moments, they had crossed distances that would take normal ships years to travel. When they dropped out of jump space, they found themselves at the edge of the Sol system. Sorth looked at the main screen with satisfaction. There was the distant sun, yellow and ordinary. There were the outer planets, cold and silent. And there, far away, was the third planet, Earth, the dead world. Begin scans, Sorth ordered. Find the best locations for our first mining operations. His sensor officer, a young Silithian named Veth, began working at his station. For a few minutes, everything was normal. Then Veth stopped. His hands froze over the controls. Commander, Veth said slowly, I am reading something strange. What is it? Power signatures. From the third planet. Sorth turned to look at the young officer. That is impossible. The planet is dead. I know, sir. But the readings are clear. And they are growing. Veth's voice shook slightly. I am now seeing thousands of power sources. They are appearing all over the system. Sorth walked to the sensor station and looked at the screen himself. What he saw made his blood run cold. All across the Sol system, lights were turning on. Ships were appearing from nowhere, rising from moons and asteroids. The readings were impossible. There were too many of them. There could not be this many ships in one system. "Get me a visual," Sorth ordered. The screen changed to show the area near Earth's moon. What Sorth saw there would stay with him forever. Ships were pouring out of the moon itself. Massive doors had opened in the dark side, and from those doors came warships by the hundred. They were ugly ships, brutal and angular, covered in weapons that Sorth did not recognize. "Commander," the communications officer said, "we are receiving a transmission. It is in our language. Play it." The voice that filled the bridge was female, calm and completely unafraid. "Attention, Silithian vessels. This is Admiral Patricia Cole of the Terran Defense Fleet. You have entered human space without permission. You have 30 minutes to turn around and leave. If you do not leave, we will consider it an act of war. This is your only warning." Silence filled the bridge. Every Silithian stared at the screen in shock. "Humans," Veth whispered. "The humans are alive." Sorth gripped the railing in front of him so hard that his claws left marks. His mind raced. Everything he knew said this was impossible. Humans were extinct. Everyone knew this. The Council had records, but the records were wrong. The Council was wrong. Everyone was wrong. And now he was standing in a system full of enemy warships with nothing but a mining fleet and 12 escorts. "Send a message to the Dominion," Sorth said. His voice sounded strange in his own ears. Tell them the humans are alive. Tell them we need help." On Earth, deep in Bunker 7, Commander Daniel Hayes watched the Silithian fleet on his screen. Maria Santos stood beside him, monitoring the communications. "They have received our message," Maria said. "They are not leaving." Daniel nodded. He had expected this. The Silithians were proud. They would not run from what they thought was a dead species. "How much time left?" he asked. 27 minutes. Daniel looked at the screen. 59 ships. Thousands of aliens who had come to pick the bones of a world they thought was empty. They had no idea what was waiting for them. "Pass the word to Admiral Cole," Daniel said. "If they are still here when the time runs out, destroy them all." Maria sent the message. And across the system, 12,000 human warships began to move into attack position. The universe was about to learn that humanity was very much alive. And very, very angry. The Galactic Council accidentally awakened humanity's survival protocol, Part 3. The Awakening on the Bridge of the Abundant Fortune. Commander Sorth watched the countdown timer with growing fear. 20 minutes had passed since the human warning. 10 minutes remained. His crew looked at him, waiting for orders, but he had none to give. "Commander," his second officer said carefully, "perhaps we should consider leaving." "Leave?" Sorth turned on him with anger. "And tell the Dominion that we ran from a dead species? That we abandoned our mission because of a trick? With respect, sir, this does not look like a trick." The officer pointed at the sensor display. "We are counting over 10,000 warships. Our escorts cannot fight that many." Sorth knew his officer was right. He had known it from the moment the first human ship appeared. But his pride would not let him accept it. The Silithian Dominion did not run. They did not show fear. They were one of the great powers of the galaxy. "We will wait," Sorth decided. "The humans are bluffing. No species hides for 300 years just to start a war. They want something. They will negotiate." His sensor officer Veth spoke up. "Commander, the human ships are moving. Moving where?" "Toward us. They are forming attack groups." Veth's voice cracked. "They are not slowing down." On the carrier Unity, Admiral Patricia Cole stood at the center of her bridge. She was a tall woman with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen many things. Her family had served in the Terran Defense Fleet for generations. Her grandmother had helped build the first ships. Her mother had commanded the lunar shipyards. Now Patricia commanded the entire fleet. "Time remaining?" she asked. "8 minutes, Admiral," Captain Lucas Green replied. He was younger than Patricia, but just as calm. He had trained his whole life for this moment, as had everyone on the ship. Status of all battle groups? All groups in position. Weapons charged. Crews ready. Lucas paused. "Admiral, the Silithians are not moving. They are holding position." Patricia nodded slowly. She had expected this. The Council species were used to being the hunters, not the hunted. They did not know how to react when someone pushed back. "Open a channel to Commander Hayes," she said. Daniel's face appeared on her screen. He looked tired but alert. "Admiral, report. 8 minutes until the deadline. The enemy is not withdrawing." Patricia studied the tactical display. "I recommend we proceed as planned." Daniel was silent for a moment. This was the point of no return. Once they fired, the whole galaxy would know that humanity was alive. There would be no more hiding, no more waiting. Everything would change. "Proceed," Daniel said. "But give them one more chance. Make sure they understand what is about to happen." Patricia nodded and cut the connection. She turned to her communications officer. "Send another message to the Silithian flagship. Tell them that in 7 minutes we will open fire. Tell them this is their final chance to leave." The message was sent. On the abundant fortune, Sorth received it with shaking hands. His officers watched him, waiting for a decision that could save or doom them all. "They are still bluffing," Sorth said, but his voice had no strength in it. They would not attack without cause. The Council would punish them. "Commander," Veth said quietly, "the Council thinks they are dead. They have no reason to fear the Council." Sorth stared at his young censor officer. The truth of those words hit him like a blow. He was right. The humans had nothing to lose. They had already lost everything once. What could the Council possibly threaten them with? "All ships," Sorth said suddenly, his voice loud in the silent bridge. "Reverse course. Full speed. Get us out of here." But it was too late. The timer reached 0 at the exact same moment the Silithian ships began to turn. Patricia Cole saw the movement on her screen and felt no satisfaction. These aliens had come to steal from a grave that was not empty. They had learned the truth too late. "All ships," Patricia said calmly, "fire at will." The battle was not a battle. It was an execution. Human ships had been built in secret for 300 years. Human scientists had studied every piece of Council technology they could find. They had taken what was good and made it better. They had invented what had never existed before. The weapons that fired from the human fleet were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Energy beams cut through Silithian shields like they were made of paper. Missiles that seemed to disappear and reappear inside enemy hulls exploded from within. Kinetic rounds, the size of small cars, tore holes through the largest ships. The first Silithian warship died in seconds. Then the second. Then the third. The mining ships, huge and slow, tried to run, but human frigates were faster. They surrounded the fleeing vessels and tore them apart. On the abundant fortune, Commander Sorth watched his fleet die around him. Alarms screamed. Lights flickered. The deck shook with each impact. "Shields failing," someone shouted. "Hull breach on decks 7 through 12. We have lost main engines." Sorth stood frozen in the center of the chaos. He had been so sure, so confident. The humans were supposed to be dead. Everyone knew this. The Council had records. There were reports. There were surveys. A huge impact threw him to the floor. When he looked up, he saw stars through a hole in the ceiling. The bridge was open to space. Emergency shields were the only thing keeping them alive. "This cannot be happening," Sorth whispered. But it was happening. All around him, his crew was dying. His ships were burning. His fleet was becoming dust. The last thing Commander Sorth saw was a human warship coming toward his bridge. It was an ugly ship, brutal and mean, covered in weapons that still glowed from firing. In his final moment, Sorth realized that this ship, this human ship, was the most terrifying thing he had ever seen. Then the abundant fortune exploded, and there was nothing left. On Earth, Daniel Hayes watched the battle end. It had lasted 11 minutes. 59 Silithian ships had been reduced to floating wreckage. No survivors, Maria Santos reported. Her voice was quiet. Human casualties, 0. Daniel nodded. He felt no joy in this victory. He felt only the weight of what had to come next. "Send teams to collect the wreckage," he ordered. "I want to know everything about their technology, their communications, everything." "Yes, sir." Maria hesitated. "Sir, the Council will respond to this. We just destroyed a major fleet. They will not ignore it. I know." Daniel turned away from the screens. "That is why we need to be ready." This was just the beginning. Across the solar system, human ships held their positions. They had won their first battle, but they knew the war was just starting. The Council would send more ships, more fleets. They would try to crush these humans who had dared to survive. But humanity was not afraid. They had waited 300 years for this moment. They had built their ships and trained their soldiers and prepared for exactly this situation. The galaxy thought they were dead. The galaxy was about to learn how wrong it was. On the Unity, Admiral Patricia Cole allowed herself a small moment of satisfaction. Her fleet had performed perfectly. Not a single human ship had been damaged. "Send a message to all commands," she said. "Phase 1 complete. Begin preparations for Phase 2. Lucas Green looked at her. "Phase 2, Admiral?" Patricia stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Galactic Council was about to receive terrible news. They would panic. They would argue. Eventually, they would act. "They will come for us now," Patricia said. "So we will go to them first. We have hidden long enough." She turned to face her crew. "It is time to show the galaxy what humanity can do." In bunkers across Earth, 8 billion people watched the battle recordings. They saw their ships tear through the enemy fleet. They saw the Silithians die in fire and darkness. For the first time in 300 years, they felt something they had almost forgotten. They felt hope that the long patience was over. Humanity had awakened, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. The Galactic Council accidentally awakened humanity's survival protocol, Part 4, The Reckoning. The news reached the Galactic Council in hours. Automated drones had escaped the Sol system before the battle ended. They carried recordings that showed everything. 59 ships destroyed. Thousands of Silithians dead. A human fleet that numbered in the tens of thousands. High Arbiter Keth Voran watched the recordings alone in his private chamber. His forehands shook as he saw his people's ships explode one by one. He saw weapons that should not exist. He saw speed and power that made the Dominion's best warships look like children's toys. When the recording ended, Keth Voran sat in darkness for a long time. Then he called for an emergency session of the council. The great crystal chamber filled with frightened voices. Representatives who had barely cared about Earth 3 weeks ago now screamed for action. Some demanded war. Others demanded negotiation. A few said nothing at all, too shocked to speak. "Order!" Keth Voran shouted over the noise. "We must have order." The chamber slowly became quiet. All eyes turned to the High Arbiter. He looked older than he had before. The pride that had filled him during the harvesting vote was gone, replaced by something that looked like fear. "The situation is clear," Keth Voran said. "The humans are alive. They have a massive fleet. They have destroyed our ships. He paused, struggling with the next words. We must respond. Ambassador Torin of the Varith Empire rose from his platform. His metal scales caught the light as he moved. The Empire will contribute 500 warships to a combined fleet. We will teach these humans their place. 500 ships? Ambassador Yura of the Mentari Collective buzzed with disbelief. Did you see the recordings? They have over 10,000. 500 would be nothing to them. Then we send more. Every species contributes. We gather the largest fleet in Council history. Torin showed his teeth. No single species can stand against the combined might of the galaxy. In his corner, old Keeper Oryx listened to the debate with growing sadness. He had warned them. He had said they should investigate more carefully. No one had listened. May I speak? Oryx asked. The chamber fell silent. The keepers rarely spoke in council meetings. When they did, wise beings paid attention. I have watched many species, Oryx said slowly. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have seen wars that burned across hundreds of star systems. He looked around the chamber. But I have never seen anything like this. Like what, exactly? Kethvorin asked. A species that chose to hide instead of fight. A species that waited 300 years in darkness, building and preparing. A species that let us believe they were dead. Oryx shook his ancient head. Do you understand what this means? They planned this. All of it. For 300 years, they watched us. They learned our technology. They built ships to counter our weapons. They waited until they were ready. The chamber was very quiet now. You want to send a fleet against them? Oryx continued. They will destroy it. You want to threaten them with war? They have been preparing for war longer than some of your species have existed. He looked directly at Kethvorin. The humans are not like other species. They do not think like us. They do not fight like us. And I fear that if you push them, you will discover just how different they truly are. Before anyone could respond, the communications officer interrupted. High Arbiter, we are receiving a transmission. From the humans. Kethvorin straightened in his seat. Play it. The face that appeared on the main screen was a woman with dark hair and calm eyes. She wore a simple uniform with no decorations. When she spoke, her voice was steady and clear. I am Ambassador Maria Santos of the Terran Republic. I am authorized to speak for all of humanity. She paused, letting the words sink in. Your harvesting fleet entered our system without permission. They were given warning to leave. They chose to stay. They faced the consequences. Kethvorin leaned forward. You killed thousands of our people. Your people came to steal from our world. They believed we were extinct. They were wrong. Maria's expression did not change. We are sending you our terms. You will accept them or face war. There will be no negotiation. The terms appeared on screens throughout the chamber. As the representatives read them, shock turned to anger, turned to fear. Humanity demanded recognition as a sovereign power. They claimed the entire Sol system and all surrounding space within 50 light years. Any ship entering this territory without permission would be destroyed. Any attempt to harvest resources from dead civilizations anywhere in the galaxy would be met with force. And finally, the Silithian Dominion would surrender all military vessels and technology. They would pay for the crime of attempting to harvest a living world. This is madness, Kethvorin shouted. We will not accept these terms. The Council will never surrender to a single species. Maria Santos looked at him through the screen. Then you will face the alternative. The transmission ended. The chamber exploded in chaos. Over the next month, the Council gathered the largest fleet in galactic history. Ships came from every major power. The Vorith sent 5,000. The Montari sent 3,000. Even the smaller species contributed what they could. In total, 32,000 warships gathered at the edge of Council Space. They were ready for war. They were sure of victory. 32,000 ships against 10,000. The math was simple, but humanity had not been waiting for the Council to attack. Humanity had been moving. Admiral Patricia Cole stood on the bridge of the Unity as her fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They were not in the Sol system anymore. They were in Silithian space. Admiral Lucas Green reported, "We are detecting minimal defenses." Most of their fleet must have joined the Council Armada. Patricia nodded. This was exactly what she had expected. Target all military installations. Leave the civilian populations alone. And if they fight back, then we will do what we must. Patricia turned to her communications officer. Broadcast our message. Let them know why we are here. Across the Silithian homeworld, a human voice echoed from every speaker and screen. People of the Dominion, your leaders sent ships to steal from our world. They thought we were dead. They were wrong. Now you will learn what happens when you try to take what belongs to humanity. The attack was swift and precise. Human ships destroyed orbital platforms, shipyards, and military bases. They did not touch the cities below. They did not harm the civilians. But when they left, the Silithian Dominion had no fleet, no defenses, and no way to rebuild. The same scene repeated across 6 other systems. Everywhere the humans went, they left the same message. Any species that supported the harvesting of Earth would pay the price. When the Council Armada finally reached the Sol system, they found it empty. The human fleet was gone. They had been fighting a war on a dozen fronts while the Council gathered its forces. High Arbiter Kethvaran received the reports with horror. The Dominion was crippled. 3 other major powers had lost their shipyards. The Council's supply lines were under attack. They knew, Kethvaran whispered. They knew we would gather a fleet. They used the time to strike where we were weak. Old Keeper Oryx had been right. The humans did not fight like other species. They did not wait for their enemies to attack. They moved first. They struck hard. And they never ever stopped. In the command center beneath Earth, Daniel Hayes watched the reports come in. The war was going exactly as planned. The Council was powerful, but they were slow and divided. Humanity was smaller, but they were united and fast. Ambassador Santos is ready to send new terms, Maria reported. Daniel looked at the star map showing human victories across the galaxy. Not yet. We have more work to do. They need to understand that this is not a war they can win. The reckoning had begun, and it was far from over. The Galactic Council accidentally awakened humanity's survival protocol, Part 5. The New Order. The war lasted 3 months. When it ended, the galaxy had changed forever. Humanity did not fight for land or resources. They fought to teach a lesson. Every species that had voted to harvest Earth learned what it meant to anger a people who had spent 3 centuries preparing for exactly this moment. The Silithian Dominion fell first. Their homeworld was not destroyed. Humanity was not cruel. But every warship, every weapons factory, every military base was wiped away. The Dominion, which had once ruled 70 star systems, was left with nothing but memories of their former power. The Varth Empire tried to fight back. They gathered their remaining ships and attacked a human supply line near the border of Council space. They believed their metal hides and heavy weapons would give them victory. They were wrong. The battle lasted 2 hours. When it ended, 60% of the Varth fleet was floating debris. The survivors limped home with tailies of human ships that seemed to know their every move. Human weapons that cut through their armor like water through sand. After that, the Montari Collective surrendered without a fight. Ambassador Yura contacted humanity directly and asked for peace terms. She was smart enough to know that fighting was pointless. One by one, the great powers of the council fell silent. Some surrendered openly. Others simply stopped sending ships and hoped humanity would leave them alone. In the crystal chamber of the Galactic Council, High Arbiter HFY stood before what remained of the representatives. Many seats were empty now. Some species had fled. Others had been removed from power by their own people, blamed for the disaster they had caused. "We have no choice," HFY said. His voice was hollow, defeated. "We must accept the human terms, all of them?" Ambassador Torin asked. The Vorath leader looked smaller than before. His metal scales had lost their shine, all of them. HFY looked around the chamber. "We cannot win this war. Every battle costs us more than we can afford. Every week, the humans grow stronger while we grow weaker." He lowered his head. "We tried to steal from a grave. Now we pay the price." The vote was unanimous. The Galactic Council accepted humanity's terms. Ambassador Maria Santos arrived at the council chamber 2 weeks later. She came with a small escort, just 6 guards and 2 assistants. She did not need more. Everyone knew that behind her stood the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. The representatives watched in silence as she walked to the center of the chamber. She was a small woman compared to most of the aliens around her, but she stood straight and spoke with confidence. "I am here to explain how things will work from now on," Maria said. "The old order is finished. For too long, this council treated the galaxy as something to be used and thrown away. You watched species die and called it natural. You harvested dead worlds without thought or respect. That ends today." She gestured, and a holographic map appeared showing human territory. The Sol system glowed at the center, surrounded by a wide zone of claimed space. "We do not want your worlds," Maria continued. "We do not want to rule the galaxy. But we will be watching. Any species that threatens another with extinction will answer to us. Any attempt to harvest the remains of a dead civilization will be met with force." Keeper Oryx rose from his seat. His ancient body moved slowly, but his eyes were clear. "And if we refuse?" Maria looked at him. For a moment, something almost like respect crossed her face. "You warned them, did you not? Before the vote. You said they should investigate more carefully." Oryx nodded slowly. "Then you know what will happen if you refuse." Maria's voice softened slightly. "We do not want enemies. We spent 300 years in darkness, waiting for the day we could live in the light again. We do not enjoy war, but we will fight if we must, and we will win." The chamber was silent. Every representative understood. The humans were not making threats. They were stating facts. "There will be peace," Oryx said finally. "I will see to it." Maria nodded. "Then we have an agreement." 1 year later, on the anniversary of the awakening, Daniel Hayes stood on the surface of Earth for the first time since childhood. The sky above him was still gray, but it was cleaner than it had been. The air still carried traces of old poison, but people could breathe it now without masks. Around him, a memorial garden had been built. Trees and flowers grew in soil that had been dead for 3 centuries. Children played on grass that their grandparents had only seen in pictures. Maria Santos walked up beside him. She had returned from the council a month ago, her work as ambassador complete for now. "The Silithians have asked to rejoin the council," she said. "With reduced power, of course. And the Vorath? Still bitter, but cooperating." Maria smiled slightly. "The Montari want to trade. They are curious about human art and music. They say we have interesting ideas." Daniel watched the children playing. A little girl was chasing her brother through the flowers, laughing. The sound seemed impossible, magical. Laughter in the open air, under a sky without a roof. 300 years, Daniel said quietly. 300 years of hiding, building, waiting, And now this. Was it worth it? Maria asked. Daniel thought about the question carefully. He thought about the people who had lived and died in the bunkers, never seeing the sun. He thought about the soldiers who had given their lives in the war. He thought about all the sacrifices, all the pain, all the years in darkness. Yes, he said finally. It was worth it. Not for us. For them. He nodded toward the children. They will grow up in a galaxy that respects humanity. They will explore stars that their ancestors only dreamed about. They will live lives we could never have imagined. Maria was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "The council asked me something before I left. They wanted to know how we did it. How we stayed hidden for so long. How we built our fleet without anyone knowing. How we survived when every other species in our situation just faded away." What did you tell them? The truth. That humans are stubborn. That we do not give up even when everything seems lost. That we would rather hide in darkness for 300 years than surrender to extinction. Maria looked at the sky, where the first stars were beginning to appear. I told them that humanity does not die easily. Daniel smiled. It was a real smile, the first one he could remember in years. No, he said. We do not. Above them, the stars came out one by one. Somewhere up there, human ships were patrolling the borders of their new territory. Scientists were studying alien technologies. Explorers were mapping star systems that no human had ever seen. The long patience was over. Humanity had emerged from the shadows, stronger than anyone had believed possible. They had faced a galaxy that wanted to pick their bones and shown that galaxy what humans were made of. In the crystal chamber of the council, new rules governed the stars. In the shipyards of fallen empires, peace had replaced war. In the hearts of 400 species, a new understanding had taken root. Humanity was not to be underestimated. Humanity was not to be threatened. Humanity was here to stay. And as Daniel Hayes stood in his memorial garden, watching children play under open skies, he knew that every moment of suffering had been worth it. Not for revenge, not for power, but for this simple, beautiful moment of hope. The galaxy had awakened humanity's survival protocol. They had expected to find a dead world full of resources waiting to be taken. Instead, they had found 8 billion people who had learned the most important lesson in the universe. Together, anything is possible. Even survival. Even victory. Even peace. The new age had begun. And humanity was ready. The end